is on the way for Canadian steel and lumber producers impacted by the ongoing trade war initiated by the Trump administration. Prime Minister Mark Carney was in Ottawa earlier today, where he announced aid measures that aim to tighten the quota on steel imports from countries that don't have free trade pacts with Canada and make it easier for builders to use Canadian lumber. Tessa Bennett joins us live in studio with the details. Tessa?
Manisa, Carney says steel and lumber are core to Canada's competitiveness, and the newly announced measures are intended to help these industries reposition themselves in the changing trade landscape. The idea is to rapidly increase domestic demand for these products and make it cheaper to transport them across the country.
We know that this decades-long process of our ever closer economic relationship between Canada and the United States has ended, and as a consequence of that, many of our strengths have become our vulnerabilities, particularly in those industries that are most tightly integrated with the United States.
After nearly a year of weathering a tariff storm fueled by U.S. President Donald Trump, Canada's steel and softwood lumber industries are getting another lifeline from the federal government. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced new aid measures today, saying many of our strengths have become our vulnerabilities in the wake of the changing trade economy. He's now offering a plan to cut steel imports from countries where Canada doesn't have a free trade deal from 50% to 20% of 2024 levels. This aims to allow Canadian steel producers to fill the gap in the domestic market, something Carney estimates will open up about $854 million in domestic demand.
That's important because our import levels are way above what other countries would be. Okay, historically, imports might be 20% of the Canadian market, and they've been 50 and 60%.
Additionally, the federal government plans to inject an added $500 million in loan guarantees for struggling softwood lumber companies, and will be lowering the cost of freight transport across the country by 50%. Overall,
For the Canadian economy, we estimate that U.S. tariffs and the uncertainty that they're creating will cost Canadians around 1.8% of GDP. That's about $50 billion lost from our economy, or the equivalent of $1,300 for every Canadian. And this is happening fast. It's a rupture, which means that our economic strategy needs to change dramatically and rapidly.
The steel industry has been among those hardest hit in Canada, facing 50% tariffs from the Trump administration. It was also one of the first sectors to be targeted when Trump returned to office. Canadian steel producers export just over half of their annual production, and last year alone, more than 90% of that went to the U.S. Earlier in the trade war, Carney's government announced a $1 billion investment into the Strategic Innovation Fund to support the steel industry's transition toward new lines of business and to strengthen domestic supply chains. And Carney is looking to expand even further, levying a new global 25% tariff on steel derivative products like wind towers and wires.
Trump changes his mind on these things quicker than those soccer guys they're talking about, the FIFA announcement. I think all of this is drifting into the renegotiation of what the Americans call the USMCA, the U.S.-Canada-Mexico Trade Agreement, that was due to be reviewed next year. It sounds like it's going to be a major renegotiation.
Softwood lumber has also long been targeted by U.S. tariffs and is currently taxed at 45% after the Trump administration's hike last month. Meanwhile, trade talks between Carney and Trump have hit a snag after the Ontario government ran an advertisement in U.S. markets using remarks from former President Ronald Reagan to highlight the downsides of tariffs. As for trade negotiations between Carney and Trump's teams, the Prime Minister says he spoke with the President on Tuesday and stands ready to re-engage those conversations when the United States is as well. Carney has plans to travel to Washington next week, but says it's for events relating to the upcoming FIFA World Cup.